Hi, Courtney.
Wait, for a moment. Hi, how are you? I feel like maybe I'm just gonna sit back. Hi, Lo. Hi, Lo. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm really good. I am. I was thinking, I am. Well, we were talking about, yeah, I'm good. I am. I'm good. How are you, Phil?
Good. I am. That's the Leo sun talking, I think.
Yeah, is it I was thinking I was, okay, hear that. That's actually really interesting. Is it the Leo sun or is it I think the first house or Aries is the I am house. But
Right.
it is interesting, right? Because, okay, I keep thinking this. That's so interesting you said that because, okay, is the identity, the sun, the fifth house, is that represented in our first house? And is it, well, we know it's all connected, but I am what? What are you, Phil?
I think that's enough. I am.
I am, I am. Do you know, I am Sam. I was thinking about this too. I'm Sam, I am Sam, I am. I think we've talked about that before, right?
Dr. Seuss.
So
Yeah.
brilliant. So, so brilliant.
It's what's so amazing about him is it's the words and the illustrations. He does both, and he creates an all entire other world that you just get lost in. And it's so incredibly imaginative and one of a kind, and yet easily accessible to children and adults.
Yeah. Easily accessible. And I think that is I think it's all connected, right? So I'll say to you, what an interesting way we could think about, because we're going to talk about the first house today, and that's such an easy way to think about it. It's easy and accessible. It's kind of just right there. It's not hiding. We were just talking about the 12th house, which was hidden, and that's so interesting. Easy and accessible. And that
Mm-hmm.
it's effortless in some ways. He didn't even try. It doesn't, well, we know he probably did try, but it was there's such an ease when you're looking at it, you understand it. It's clear to you. It's like right there.
So, yes, there's something very honest about the first house. And I find that Aries people are naturally honest. Even when they get on your nerves and they can, you know, be a handful, they're always honest. They're always what you see is what you get. Take me or leave me. And that's
Oh yeah.
beautiful.
It's so funny. That's so interesting because we were talking about my mom who has a very strong Aries moon, and that's it. It's like me, you don't like me. And so just in case anyone's listening that doesn't know, it's truly like the Aries is connected to the first house. First house is Aries. And it is interesting. It's like you like me, you don't like me. And I think you are your moon's your soul, right? It's like you could see Tom Brady has an Aries moon. It's like he's just very active and I think very competitive. So I always think you're more your moon than you are your sun, and then you're getting to your sun. But yeah, that's true. There's an honesty or maybe an innocence about the first house. It's like you're just beginning and you're starting. And I think of the fool, right? It's like you don't really know where you're going to go. I think of the hero's journey. And the hero,
Yeah,
it's honest. It is honest. That's interesting. I never thought about it like that, honesty.
maybe it's what they might come off as a little bit less than mature, perhaps. But I like that because it's so unguarded. You know, they're just gonna tell you exactly how they're feeling. They're gonna do what they feel is right. And I actually admire that. Because they're not second guessing themselves. They're not being they're not being cunning about anything. They're just marching forward. They're going to fall flat on their face and
And
hurt
trip,
themselves,
I love that. And trip, like you can imagine the accidents, like you think of Aries, you think the first house, and you think of accidents.
and they're going to get right back up again.
Yeah, well, and if you think, I always think about, well, and you think about just houses as ages, and the first house is when you're first born, and I think probably like the first year or two of your life. And think about it, you just explained a baby perfectly. You get up, they fall, they get back up. There's no fear, literally. It's like, and I think what's interesting about that we started with the 12th house and we went to the first house is so actually great because I think the planets in your first house, it's much more obvious that they're there. It's much more of who you are out in the world.
Hmm. They're 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 straight up, they're they're bold, and they're just being themselves, come hell or high water. I
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
I do. I like that. I like the idea. I always think of I was trying, oh, I was sitting on the plane with this young girl and she said that she understood astrology and she got it, but she was having a really hard time with the houses. And I thought, oh, that's interesting because that's one thing I actually do get very well are the houses. And so I took her through this path of the houses. But the first thing is I was like, you imagine if you're a baby and you're literally taken out of the womb and what are you going to do when you come out and you're warm and cozy and now all of a sudden there's air, you're going to scream. You're going to cry because it's a survival. And that is the first house very well. Like, what are you going to do to survive?
And make yourself stronger.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you don't scream and say you're hungry, you're not going to get what you want. And is that selfish or is that self-love? I mean, it's a very interesting question, right?
Well, when you're screaming as a baby, you're strengthening your lungs. You're making them stronger. So it's really in your best interest to be heard.
Wait, I actually just heard this. Did you tell me or someone else? I don't know. Where if the butterfly is in the crucifix, and in order to get out, it needs to flap its wings. And if you help it get out, you actually hurt it. Did you ever
I
hear
just
this?
read that story this. Did you tell me? I
I
read
don't
that
know. I'm
story.
wondering if you told me that story. I'm like, who told me that?
Yes, a kind person helped the caterpillar out of the cocoon. And yeah, it's like a Chinese proverb or something. I just read that.
That's so fun. Yeah. Isn't this so
I
interesting?
just
Yeah.
read it this week.
Then we didn't speak about it. Isn't that so funny? So yeah, so then if you think about that as the butterfly, because we have butterflies. I should send you this video. It's amazing. And then when they go up and they climb up and they do all this work on their own, those caterpillars, and then they're sitting there, and in order for their wings to get strong, part of the process is getting out of the cocoon. And so you're not actually helping it. And I think that's a great metaphor for life. We it sounds depressing, but you kind of are born alone. Even though you have parents, you're still born there alone. And for a moment in time, you're laying on that table and not being held. And then we go back and we're alone a lot. We're alone. We're responsible for our own autonomy.
Mhm.
And I think that's first house for you. Even though we could get help, even though as humans, we actually do need people and we need help and we need a mother and we need a father, right, to help us or friends. But at the end of the day, we're the ones making the choices.
Yeah, and I think you need that Aries heroism to just get on with it, not overthink it, not overfeel it, do it.
Yeah, instincts, right? You think about first house and instinct. Like if I'm just starting something, I have no fear. There's no fear because I'm not scared. If I'm just beginning life, I'll say maybe I have memories of my past life, if you believe that. But you think about instincts and Aries and just Aries first house, how you really just have to do what's immediate, that quick response. There's a quickness.
Mhm. And then also, you know, keep trying. to do what seems so out of reach. Just keep trying until, you go from, you know, being completely helpless to being able to crawl, to being able to stand up and to put one foot in the front of the other. Those are big, 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 big milestones.
in a very short period. It was brilliant in such a short period of time. And then you're going to go into second house, which is self-worth. But what's interesting about that is think about how proud, if you really thought about how much you learned in that first 2 years of your life, wouldn't you be so proud of yourself and appreciate who you are? I mean,
Mhm.
we're so hard on ourselves. We're
Mhm.
always, I think, go back to first house, seventh house, and how easy it is to compare ourselves to where somebody else is. And
Mhm.
what a waste of our time.
Right. And we never gave up on any of those attempts. We never,
Oh,
we
yeah.
never, we never said, this is impossible. We never said, I can't do it. Maybe they can, but I can't. We never told ourselves those things. We just kept trying and kept trying and kept trying.
Yeah,
That's
and no
heroic.
one else told us we couldn't because we had mothers sitting there like, yay, or fathers clapping, or people clapping for us. You ever see a baby,
Mhm.
you automatically want to clap for
Mhm.
them. You know they can do it. You know they can do it. How about if you
Mhm.
knew you could do anything?
Mhm. Yeah,
I don't have any planet. Do you have any I don't have any planets in my first house. So it's
I
so
don't know.
interesting. I was like, huh, I don't really know what, and but I know people that have planets in the first house, and I do appreciate that very much, right? It's something I think when you have a planet in the first house, how important it is to embody what the planet is in that house and take it on as part of who you are and be proud of it. Like how you said, just that you can walk. I mean, that's a really interesting thought. You can walk, or if you have the moon, you can feel. I feel, or if I have Saturn, I work and I put effort in, and it becomes part of your mask of your identity.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe we need to pat ourselves on the back a little bit more often because we start out as a living thing that can't even take care of itself. It can't feed itself or walk or move, completely vulnerable. And in no time, they're strong enough to have more babies.
That's
Amazing.
that's
Amazing.
amazing. Well, I was thinking about this, right? Because I was thinking about that's the difference between having a baby and a pet. And the pet is a sixth house thing. And so that is interesting, right? Because it's still under the horizon. And so, for instance, the pet's born, that pet never learns to get out in the world by itself. It always is, you're always responsible for the pet. And so if you're a mother of a pet, it's just your responsibility forever, where the kids leave the nest. They leave, they go on their own. And so it is amazing what we're one of the only animals that can end up being self-sufficient, right? I mean, I would think so. I mean, I don't really know a lot about, but I know pet wise. I mean, I guess animals out in the wild, they are responsible for themselves.
Right. But they're born with many skills and so much instinct. You think about animals that have heightened sense, or they're babies and they have really strong claws. There are all kinds of strange characteristics that particular animals have, but that allows them to take care of themselves pretty quickly.
Here's a question though. Do we somehow Well, I know this answer. So somehow along the way we lose our own instincts. I think because we are so nerd. So turtles, for instance, did you know this? Turtles never meet their mom. They never meet their mom. They're born and they never meet their mom. Or at least sea turtles, they go out to the sea and then and then they go back. But this is what's interesting. They always come back and lay their eggs in the same place they were born. But I thought that's so interesting. They never meet their mom. So in some ways they would have to have this survival. You would have to have the instincts and keep the instincts. Whereas humans, we don't really need to keep our own instincts.
Hmm. Right. We don't have that inner guidance system that tells us where in the world that we were born, or we don't have any of that. And yet a turtle does. I mean, a turtle is not a very advanced living organism. They're not like mammals. They're pretty simple creatures, beautiful and lovely, but they're not complex.
Yeah, so
And
they live a long time. I mean, it's amazing. It's a miracle if they live. It's actually a miracle. It's very, very rare that they live. It's a very hard, it's hard. But I just think I'm going back to along the way, how important it is to remember what our instincts are and to remember that first house, Aries. Like maybe I always think of this. If you're angry, maybe, or right, so let's say if you get angry, right, then think about Aries, or then think about just being in that first house and that feelings of the first house. Maybe that's actually saving yourself. Like when you get that feeling that you just don't like somebody or that like you just want to fight somebody. Maybe there's a good reason for that. Maybe that's your survival. And maybe we shouldn't make it wrong, right? We're so easy to make people wrong for not, does that make sense? Not being overly nice.
well, I think there's lots of good reasons to express anger. There's, it's healthy to express anger, but a lot of people are afraid of it, or a lot of people are told, it's unacceptable to do that. But anger is a way to let your feelings be known, and it's much better to let your feelings be known as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Well, I
Uh,
also think the anger is showing you, right? You think about you, I am, right? And it's what do I want? I mean, I know that sounds so selfish, but that's because that's we're talking. I'm not saying that we are selfish. I'm saying to you that is very much the power of the first house. When planets are going through that first house, like Jupiter, for instance, if it's when it's going through the first house, well, what do you want? Like if you could have anything
mhm.
and there's an opportunity to get something, what is it you want? It's not about anything else about this desire of who you want to be out in the world. And there is something that we're not taught to really, I don't know, maybe we're not taught that somehow because it seems selfish.
Right. So a great thing that you can do is say to somebody, "Hey, I won't let you do that to me. That's not acceptable." And so I think a lot of people don't say that because they don't want to rock the boat, and it might come off as not polite. But like I said, I admire people who their their passion is so strong that it just bursts forth. Whereas somebody who overthinks it, for me, for instance, might overthink it and just put a lid on it. And I don't think that's the best approach either.
Well, well, yeah, I don't think, well, I actually, I don't think that's such a good approach because then you go back to, and everybody has a first house, everyone has Aries energy. So there's no question that everyone has this in their chart. And so, for instance, well, I don't think that's a really good thing because if you go back to, if you stuff it in your body, in your space, and you just close it up, then you think about that 12th, you go back to the 12th house, go back to the 6th house, you get sick. So, how important it is to bring whatever it is out to the surface, even if it's just for your own knowledge of what I need to be okay, right? I am, right? I go back to the I am. I mean, it is the I am. It is asking for what you want in a very clear way. And then if you don't tell people what you need from them, how do you expect them to know?
Right. And they could also be speaking on behalf of others when they say, "Hey, I don't like that. And I don't think that's fair."
Well, who
So,
can? Wait, oh, I have a question. Wait, what were you at? What were you saying?
so they might not be even speaking for themselves when they say something like, "Hey, I don't think that's fair." That's not fair to
Well, what's not fair?
whatever it happens to be. Maybe the umpire called something wrong on a little league game, and the parent says, "Hey, I don't think you're being fair here.
Oh, that's a good, yeah, that's a good point.
So there, he's not speaking for himself. He's speaking for the little guy or someone who can't speak for themselves.
Yeah. It's an
So
interesting thing.
but it's still passionate. It's like a passionate approach to something where you might not be able to keep a lid on it, and it might come across as, socially uncomfortable. I don't think that's bad.
Well, and I
It's
think
new.
it blows things up in some ways, right? Think of like when you have a moment and there's this, the person gets upset about something or angry about something and it explodes. In a way, it creates a change or an action. It's feisty, it's fiery, it's new. I mean, I don't think this is fair. I think we have to rethink it. But I usually think that usually when we get angry, there's a unconscious gift in that anger.
You're laying things out on the table, which is a good thing, because if you don't, then these things simmer and they express themselves in unexpected ways.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing about like relationships. So where you and I are in a relationship. We're not in a relationship like that, but we're here and we're in a relationship and I'm my own person. And I always think a lot about this because I'm not great with the whole enabling thing, right? The whole conversation about enabling. But that first house is I am here and you are there. And then, but right now we're talking, we're having a seventh house relationship because we're having this conversation, seventh house. But I can't, and I'm going to show up for you as I am, and you're going to show up as you are, but we're always separate. And I think it's such an important thing to remember that we're two separate individuals, and then we could be together in the seventh house. But I think we have to remember how important it is that we're still separate beings
Mhm.
that have different needs
Right.
and different wants. So it's like this dance of the relationship. And somehow if you forget, so if I go back to the first house, all of a sudden, let's say if I just forget who I am and I just go along with what you want,
That's that's going to end up
who am I?
hurting. Yeah, it's going to end up hurting you and the other person in the end. Because if we're in a relationship, but if we're not helping each other grow, and if we're not if we're somehow blocking expression, then it's not going to work either. Luckily, that's not happening here. We're we're expressing our ideas and our beliefs, and we're having a dialogue about them. And if we want to get passionate about them, this is a place to do that as well.
Yeah, and maybe that's true in every relationship, though. Maybe that's the problem with relationships and why we lose interest in relationships is because we're not being our most authentic. Maybe the first house is really who am I and what's my authentic self in some ways. Like maybe it's just, I don't know, who am I? Like who are we? I mean, I think all we are is who we say we are. But really it's only how you show up to the other person in this moment,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it's an interesting thought. Because why don't relationships work? Relationships don't work because
Is
people aren't true to themselves.
right. And isn't lack of communication the number one problem in marriages and relationships? I think that's what therapists say. It's communication, which means,
Look,
you
and I
know,
think it's really about, wait, so think about first house and then think about the number one problem people have. Second house, money. So if you don't know who you are, then the first problem you're going to have is what your values are. I think that's probably what they fight about the most, right? What you value, what your values are and money.
or they don't fight about them at all, which ends to the split anyway, because they're not putting their stuff on the table and communicating what they think and feel. So these things just simmer, and there's huge misunderstandings on each side because these their feelings are not being expressed and their ideas are not being expressed.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting to think about it. If we could really stay in that. Yeah. And then I go back to if I don't know what I want, how am I going to get what I want from another person, right? You go back to why we fight or why we have miscommunication. It's somehow I don't know who I am. And God, it seems kind of not a good thing that it's the first house because it feels like that should be like on the 11th house. Who
Mhm.
am I? Right? If I'm just born and I'm a beginner at something, there's something so naive about that. And how do we know what we want or who I am
Mhm.
with such little information? It's just a thought.
Mhm.
Or do you see it as a different thing about where our wants are and our needs are? Maybe because maybe fourth house down on the bottom of the chart, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, some people, you know, some people could say to their partner, "Why don't you tell me what you want?" And the answer could be, "Well, how come you don't already know what I want?" Which is not, that's not really busting through and communicating. That's one example where things can get really messed up really quickly.
I wonder what house I think I wonder what the I want. I think it must be the fourth house, right? I want. I don't really know. It's actually a good question. I'm going to find this out. I was thinking, do I know? But you know what the problem is, Phil? I don't think we know as human beings always what we want
Right.
or who we are. And we're looking for somebody else to tell us who we are. Or do we even know who we are without the other? Because for instance, if I'm sitting here by myself, not in communication with anyone. I'm not responding to anyone. I'm just this body.
I think a good relationship can bring that out in a person. Bring out things like, wow, I didn't know that I would like this so much. I I always had a problem with it. That's just a very general example. But I think that's where relationships can be really amazing, right? Because they can get you out of your box and help you have really great new experience that you thought you would never have.
I'm smiling because as you're speaking, I'm thinking of that was the whole book of I am Sam, Sam I am. And he really thought he knew what he liked and what he didn't like. And then the other person was like, just try the green eggs and ham. And the moment he tried the green eggs and ham, it was like, I'm so surprised. I really like those green eggs and ham. And so I think that's so interesting. Thank you, Phil. It does. Another person can remind us or bring out something in ourselves that we didn't even know is possible.
Yeah, that's when things can get really exciting.
Or they could see something in you that you didn't see in yourself. And then all of a sudden, you can then embody that a little bit more because, oh my God, that person opposite me saw that I'm pretty or that I'm handsome or that I'm intellectually, Chloe says, intellectually stimulating. One of my daughters, she's like, I'm only interested in people that they're intellectually stimulating.
Mhm.
But
Or you can
yeah.
have a great skill, but you don't really think that much of it, but the partner can say, I wish I could do that. How are you able to do that? You're really good at it. And I don't know how you do it. And so that makes you think, okay, wait a second. I need this other perspective on this, and maybe I need to appreciate this more and value it more and honor myself more.
Yeah, honor myself is a perfect first house word. Honor myself, like to if we're all, if we just think of the ascendant in general. Someone was talking about this, and I thought it was so interesting that to see the ascendant and then to see what that is. So, for instance, if you had an Aries ascendant, it would be somebody that would be brave and courageous. And how do I embody that literally? And then that first house, whatever the signs are in that first house, to then take it, right? And use it. And it is interesting. Or if you were a Taurus, how do I stand as someone secure? Or a Gemini, how do I stand as being someone that's interested and curious and right? Or if you had a Cancer, how do I stand as somebody that symbolizes someone that nurtures people? And how do I be that person that is nurturing and loving, right? And then you think about just the whole system. Or Leo, how do I shine? And I walk out in the room and I just am the queen. And really being whoever, taking our charts and using it to the highest potential if possible. It's really a great idea of really looking in that first house because, and not only that, it's usually more than one sign. So, for instance, if you had Cancer, you would also have Leo. So, you're also meant to, anytime things go through that, is to shine your light because Cancer and Leo seem very different from each other. It's like, I want to be home. No, I actually want to be out being seen. It's very confusing. I would think that first house, if you have that.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle.
It is, right? If you think about it, it's not easy to be human
And that's what makes everybody fascinating, I think.
and unique. I think it's we're not meant to be like everybody else. And so why do we try to fit into this idea that we are like anyone else?
Hmm.
It's so beautiful to think about that first house as a jumping off into the unknown.
Yeah, it is. It is an adventure, and Aries is an adventurous sign too. So it really is. You're at the first. You're taking your first steps of a lifelong journey, and you're born pretty much with none of the extra protections other living things might have, like fur or, like I said, claws or any of these survival mechanisms. You kind of don't have those things as a little newborn infant. But then you grow and develop and you go through all those houses of experience, and each one is an adventure in itself. And you have all kinds of experiences that you never imagined, and you end up meeting people and being at places that you never thought you would be in. It's quite a journey, and everybody's journey is it could be a book because it's
I was thinking that everybody's interesting. Isn't it interesting? There's no
yeah.
one in the world maybe that isn't interesting. I don't think there's anyone that ha doesn't have an interesting story to tell you about their life, like their journey through life, right?
Hmm.
And it's always changing because we go through the chart, but then I was thinking even when you're talking, right? It's that every year the sun goes through the first house over again. Every 12 years, Jupiter goes through. Every 2 years, Venus and Mars go through it. And do we get a chance to, like my father once said, every 7 years you have all new cells. I don't understand why he said that. Did you ever hear that?
Yep.
Is that
Yep.
true?
Yes.
Why is that? Do you know anything about that?
Because all your cells regenerate, all your blood cells regenerate, all skin, everything has to replenish itself.
And so if you're all new cells, then are you all a new person? But it's very interesting to think about, right?
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I don't know exactly how it's done because you remain the same person, but
But
the
do
body
we?
has,
But do then I go back to that fourth house and how interesting it is, the memory of who we are. But who are we? I mean, I keep going back to this. If we really were naive or the simpleness of the ability to be simple and to not have to prove anything to anybody. You think about that first house. The baby is not trying to prove anything to anyone. They're just there and they're happy and they're sad and there's no I mean, it's you're going to make it mean what it means, but there's no meaning to it. It's just, somebody comes up to them and looks them in the face and makes a face at them. They're not getting offended. They're just not. How do we embody that a little more as a society, as a culture?
Mhm. I think in some ways, an infant is so much more connected to life because they're learning all these things for the first time. They're learning how to breathe. They're learning how to sleep and eat. And it's, their body's changing so rapidly. All these things are occurring really swiftly,
It's exciting.
and they're really feeling it. They're all they're smelling things like food or whatever it happens to be, and I think it's way more intense experience for them because it's all so new. So they're really having a, a genuine appreciation for life, to be breathing and moving and thinking and connecting with your family and your parents and your environment.
Yeah, and radically present. I mean, you're talking about just there's this ability, partly why they're so excited. They're not waiting to see what's next. They're just really there. And whatever's showing up in their face, in their eyes, there's this sense of awe. And maybe I was thinking about how you go back, yeah, like just how important it is to really be in awe of it all, of it
Yeah,
all, because maybe we're missing out on that experience of, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but of not smelling the roses because we've smelled the roses 100 times already. But
yeah,
the roses smell differently each time. So are we our own worst? Are we doing it to ourselves of not being radically present and excited and having life because it's constantly shifting and moving and also unknown. No one knows anything anyway. We're all kind of naive.
yeah. Can you imagine as adults if we behaved like infants and just grabbed at anything that we saw? Just, imagine walking down the street and just grabbing something out of somebody else's hands, or walking past the restaurant that has a cafe and just grabbing a hamburger off a plate. That's what an infant would do. They wouldn't think
Maybe we
twice
should
about
try. Maybe we should do a test one
what
day.
wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, wait, oh my God. Wait, one of my kids, we were like, we went to a store, I'll never forget it. They literally took the thing out of the store. I was like 5 blocks down. I was like, I was mortified. Of course, I went back to
Sure.
the store, but I thought it was not a bad thing. It was, they didn't know any different. Everything's theirs to have. There's no lack. I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna wait. Do you ever go to a restaurant and the people leave the French fries on the table and you just want to take the French fry because you don't want to order your own French fries and you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, I just want one of those French fries. And it's part of me would like just to take it. I don't. I don't, but I have thought about it many of times. So maybe I'm gonna
Right.
just try to take it next time. That would be so gross, but yet maybe it would be so exciting.
But if you were an infant, you would never say that's gross. You would never say that's naughty. It would never cross your mind. You would just do it because it's there, and why not?
So interesting. Yes, and I'll say to you, and if it did, and it usually what an infant does doesn't really harm anybody else.
Right. Right.
Right? So, because I'll say, I like what you said that it wasn't malicious, right? They weren't taking the hamburger to be malicious. They were taking it because they saw it and it looked good and it was pretty, or they didn't take something from the store to sneak it away. They took it because they liked it and they thought it was pretty.
And they have to learn. They have to learn what's going on around them, and that's the way that they do it.
Yeah. It's so, I think sometimes it's so important to think about having fresh eyes. That
Hmm.
like if each day the sun goes through. So if you think about the sun, this was interesting. I was thinking about this for just a second. So the sun goes up over the horizon when the sun rises, and then right before the sun goes up again the next day or in the morning is when it's in the first house. And what's interesting is, so that means about two, I think it's 2 hours, right? And so what was interesting when I was thinking about is that we were talking about the 12th house and the pineal gland and waking up the pineal gland, but the best time to do kind of meditation is actually in the first thing in the morning before the sunrise. And so therefore, would you know if you woke up every morning at 5 a.m. and wrote, or if you woke up every morning and meditated at 5 a.m. and were just silent and with yourself, would you know more of who I am, of who I am? You see the I am. It's an interesting, it's all connected.
Yeah. You would have the time and the quiet space to know you at
Yeah.
when you get up at that hour and meditate or think or write. But that's what it's all about, to not to, improve anything or make you better, but to have a deep sense and a deep understanding of you, self-awareness, which means you go about your day not just as a reactor. You're coming from a place of self-awareness, of self-knowing that will guide you through your daily experiences so that you are not a victim to whatever life happens to be showing you at the time.
Yeah. It sounds like a beautiful life, doesn't that?
It does. It's a lofty goal to reach, but worth it.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah, it is. I think it's worth it and I am here. I just go back to this. It's worth it. And I love astrology. I think that there's such a brilliance about how it's all connected to everything else and how nice it would be to just be somebody that knows thyself or allowed ourselves to be thyself or had not always questioning if we're enough.
Right.
And I
Because
think
that
there's
would
something
be if
interesting
you're
about, yeah, staying in that first house,
so
which
if
goes
you're
not enough, it goes to the second house. I think this is very interesting to think about. And then you think about if someone kills somebody, out of the immediacy and the reaction, they go to prison, they go to the 12th house. It's so fascinating on how important each particular house is.
oh yeah. Yep. And the astrology connects us with nature, with everything that is. And you know, we look at the planets and we look at the sun. Do we ever say to ourselves, or does the sun ever say to itself, "Am I enough?" No, it doesn't. And we're just the same. We're part of nature. We're part of the universe, just like the planets. So I don't think we should be questioning ourselves about deserving to be here or trying to measure up or feeling less than complete because we're alive in the universe. There's We're already all that is. And we can use astrology and use all kinds of things to know ourselves better and make our make ourselves happy. Definitely. Always. That's what should be doing. That's what life promises us, I think, happiness. But we have to be aware of that and just think of it as natural as the planets.
Yeah. Or yeah, you would never say to the flower, you're missing a petal. I mean, right? Like the
Right.
flower's whole. The flower is beautiful just the way it is. It doesn't have to look like a tulip doesn't have to look like a rose to be beautiful, right? I mean, it's so interesting. It's such a profound.
Yeah, just I think a living thing like a plant knows that it is, that it is part of the world and the universe. I think it has that awareness.
I think so.
I don't know what to
I
call
think
it.
there's energy, right? I mean, there is this definite, well, it's proof. Wait, there's proof of this, right? It's like the plant. If you talk to the plant feels better and like does better. And so
Right,
the plant has a consciousness about it.
right. Yeah, I think it just knows that it's part of a large environment and it's an entity that's part of that coexists with other living things.
Yeah, and that it's neat and it's an amazing thing, right? Because just like we are nature and we need one another and we all have our own purpose. And that's true with all animals and plants. There's a purpose for everything,
Mhm.
right? It's
And they're just being there. So there must be, I imagine there must be some level of contentment about that. They're simply being.
yeah, they're not
They don't,
trying. That's the
right.
thing. I think that that's where okay, I think that's where as humans we really mess up a little bit because like we're trying to be happy. We're trying to get that. We're trying to accomplish. And how about if we just were to be? Like I'm a human being. I'm human, I'm being, and then I'm here. And then what's my next instinct? Then I'll do it. Right? Do you see what
And
I'm saying? It's like, and then I
yeah,
think you suffer less. Like go back to like suffer, how we could, how everything here is how we could like suffer less in some ways. And if we're just here and we're being, and I think we're just too busy. I think that's part of our problem. It's like, right? Instead of just being here, we're at the next thing already. Oh, I made a plan to go here. Maybe human beings are just too busy being so many places that we're not actually anywhere. We're not here.
right, right. And that includes thinking about what happened yesterday and thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow and spending way too much time on both of those things.
And
And
not appreciating.
I'm speaking for myself, so trust me, I am speaking. I know what I'm talking about here. Spending way too much time thinking about the past and then being obsessive about what may or may not happen tomorrow.
Well, and what's interesting is there's a good chance, I'm going to say, that what you're worried about happening tomorrow is just not going to happen. Or
That's
here's my question. If I believe it's going to happen, does it happen? Right? So if I'm radically present and if I don't know what's possible and I just am here, then maybe, but most of the things we worry about and we stress about really don't come to fruition.
Yeah, don't you admire people who are happy-go-lucky? I mean, I do. I it's a gift because they're going through the same things, similar things that I'm going through, but their perspective is different. I don't see them really they're not getting down on themselves and they're not getting down on other people either.
Well,
I know people like that. They they just have this resilience about themselves and about people.
well. It's a good way to be is to be resilient and to stay present and to continue to allow yourself to be. I think you are, Phil. I think you're not giving, wait, I don't know. I'm going to say, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit, Phil, because I'll say to you, I see you as very resilient and very present. And every time I'm with you, we're very much present together. And I see you as a, what Phil are you talking? Wait. What Phil are you talking about? Because that Phil, I don't know that Phil. Oh, it's
I would,
interesting. I know you now for a while, and I'll say to you, huh? I don't know, Phil. I kind of see you as a happy-go-lucky, very present person. Oh,
I think more or less that I am, but I think it's because I
you work really
try
hard at it.
right. I try to keep that awareness in mind when things are happening to me. I try to be aware of it. So it's like a muscle that I try to keep exercised.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think every human being has to exercise that. I don't think anyone, from what I've noticed, I don't know if anyone, I don't know. I think we're all very human. I think people put better masks on than other people, maybe. Um, but I think we're more alike than not alike, I'll say.
Mhm.
I think there's something interesting about the mask that people wear. And so maybe they have a calmer mask on their presence. And maybe they have a Capricorn mask where it's much more resilient and much more firm. And that's probably who you do meet since you have Cancer on the ascendant. And so they come
Mhm.
across as very stable and content. And yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to sit with that. Who do you come across of? That would be an interesting experiment to ask people. This would be a good, interesting
Mhm.
experiment for the next week to ask people how you come across. So I'll say if the people that are listening, if you think about the first house, you could think about asking somebody, well, how do you perceive me? Because that is really is what the first house is how you're perceived in the outside world. So
And you
I'll
might
say
not
to
be
you,
that, right? You might
and so
not be
I
that.
think I perceive you differently than you actually see yourself. And I'll say to
Mhm.
you, I see you as calm. I see you as peaceful, gentle, which is interesting because I'm telling you all the Cancerian words, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. So what our head is in our mind is not always what shows up in the world. And maybe if wait, here's a theory. I'll bet you if you had your Mercury in the first house, we would see the chaotic mind a little more. But since it's not there, we don't see that. That's
Mhm.
in your hidden field.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's all in
So
here.
it's all in there. But I'm so grateful. I learned so much from talking with you, and I think it's so interesting to think about. I'm going to think about that all week of just how do I stay present and how do I be here and be in this moment and appreciate what that first house has to offer, even if no planets are going through it. Just appreciate my own first house. And I think it's a good thing to remember how important it is to appreciate every part of our chart, even if it's empty. There's something very magnificent about it.
Yeah, and enjoy everything that life offers the way a child would. They seem to enjoy just, chewing on their fingers or, you know, wiggling their toes. They have this enthusiasm about it. And
And
that's
everyone likes them. I mean, I think this is another thing. This idea of that we're liked or we're not liked is so important. And the baby has no story. So you always see a baby and everyone likes the baby. And so it's an interesting thing. It's like one of my mantras that I give. And I'm like, how about if everyone liked you and there was no story about people not liking you? And so a baby is not thinking this person's going to like me or not like me. They're just so excited to see you.
Mhm.
We've been seeing so many babies, and there's a lot of new babies being born. I feel like, and a lot of people are pregnant. Have you been noticing that?
I haven't. I'm not in a big baby neighborhood. Uh, so I see a consistent amount of babies, but I haven't I guess I need to get out to the malls and stuff because I'd probably see it then.
Probably. I don't even know. We just see so many people that are pregnant and have babies. So, but yes, I do go to the mall a lot more than you do, Phil. So that would explain a lot.
Right. I'm sure that if I I'm sure that I would see many, many babies if I went to a mall around here, especially since it's summer.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to speaking to you about the second house and
Yes,
who knows what we'll talk about. I never know what we're going to talk about, so it's really fun, but I love this because how do we learn to embody each house and sign a little bit more and how do we understand it a little more and how about if we didn't know what we thought about it before we kind of just sat in the unknown of it? I think that's a really good question and experimented with ourselves. So, I don't know. You know what? In the next couple of days, the moon's going to be going through. Well, let's keep up. Let's notice where the moon's going through or where things are going through in our own charts and think about how that means in our second house. So I look forward to hearing your view of the second house next week. And I loved your view on the first house. I think I'm going to just be very clear on how I want to be out in the world. Very important to think about that first house. So
grab that burger off the plate when you pass the cafe.
oh my God, I'll let you know what happens. You do it
Okay,
too. You try to do something
okay,
completely irresponsible, I'll say. No,
okay.
oh my God, maybe it's not. Maybe we'll make new friends.
Yes, I'm sure. Okay.